Hey guys, you can call me the king of content at the moment. This is my third YouTube video this week. And in this video, what I'm going to be showing you is how I mash up a song before a gig. Okay, this is something a lot of you have got in touch and want to know more about. Okay, so let me just explain this in more detail. As you know, you can do mashups on the DJ decks, but I'm all about simplifying things. So when you do things live, there's less chance you're going to mess up. It's kind of like the complete opposite of James Hype. It's like, how can we simplify this so we do not make mistakes when we're DJing live? It's kind of my motto, right? Now, one of the things is you can obviously get a track and you can layer an acapella over it, and you know, you can DJ on 3 decks, 4 decks, whatever. But actually, when I go out and DJ, I just want to get the crowd going, and I just know that they're not really going to care if, you know, I'm putting the acapella over it live or whether I just play a mashup that I've already made, right? Now, that's a whole debate we can have another time, but that's my thought process. So, I will remix a lot of tracks beforehand on Ableton. And a lot of you might be thinking, well, how do you do that? Because here's the thing. Once you know how to do this, you can do more creative stuff on Ableton than you actually can do on DJ decks, okay? It's a lot easier to do it on Ableton. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I do it. I go into a bit of theory, a bit of kind of music theory on this as well, but nothing too complicated. And I go through in extreme detail exactly how I went about doing this mashup, where I layered an Avicii vocal over the Astronomia, which is like the coffin song, which you're going to see in a second. Now, as per the other videos from this week, this is from a live coaching call. So let me just explain briefly. Every single week, I have a live coaching call with private students. And I teach them how to make awesome music, how to grow fame off the back of their music, how to get record labels, all that stuff. So, as per usual, if at any point in this video you're like, I would love to be one of Phil's private students, there's a link directly below this video. You can go and check it out. There's some free training, and at the end of the training, you can book a call to actually speak to me for a one-on-one session. I'll see if you're a good fit, and if you're a good fit, you can jump in the training, and I can teach you all this stuff as well, okay? Without further ado, let's get into the video. Basically, I was preparing for a DJ gig, and, you know, I was thinking to myself, there's some mashups that I just didn't want to have to do live, right? And I thought, I'm just going to mash them up beforehand and then just play it. So I've got this mashup here, which is Hey Brother, mixed up with that song, you know, the coffin dance, you know, this. But I realized this song, look how well this goes, right?
Hey, brother, there's an endless road to rediscover. Hey, sister, know the water's sweet, but blood is thicker. Oh, the sky comes falling down for you. There's nothing in this world to do. Shining like
that would kick off in a club, right? I know it's going to kick off. So now this is interesting because Hey Brother is not in the right key. Okay, so I had to drop both of these songs in to mix in key to find out what the key was. Mixing key, you don't need this software. Okay, don't everyone rush out and get it. But it's DJ software, and what's great about it is you can just drop thousands of tracks in, it'll sort them, and it'll tell you what key they are. So when you then drag those songs into your music software, your DJ software, you've got all the correct keys. Now you can just go and search like Hey Brother BPM and key, right? So you've probably seen I actually did this here. So go BPM and key for Hey Brother, and it comes up 125, and it usually says like G, right? But I also like to just cross-reference this in mixing key. So this is just a little lesson for you in case any of you are doing mashups like this. And I've got Astronomia here, which is 11A and 6A. Next question, what the heck is 6A and what the heck is 11A? So you've got to go and type in, am I recording this? Yeah. You've got to go and type in, harmonic wheel, okay? And you'll get this image here, right? So if I click it and I open it up, you will now see, go away, I'm teaching, continue with recommended cookies. Right, here it is. Okay, so now you see this. Right, now we're going to go back and look at this. Okay, 6A is G minor. Okay, and then 11A, we come to 11A is F sharp minor. G minor, F sharp minor. I then come to a new lane here in Ableton because I need to see the relationship between these two keys. Okay, so I'm going to open this up. Oh, go away. I'm opening up a MIDI clip here. Now I can just double click, make a MIDI clip here. Oh, I think you just double click. Right. Now I can open this up, and what you've got is a piano roll here. Okay, and if you scroll over the keys, you can see the notes, right? And so I've already forgotten what they are. Oh, gosh. G minor and F sharp minor. So I then come and I look at G. Don't worry about minor or major. Don't worry about the key right now. We're just going to look at the note. So I'm going to come to G. Okay, so G, and then F sharp. Now F sharp is one up from F. So if I go up one, that's F sharp. Now, I don't want everyone to panic now and go, oh, this is so complicated music theory. Honestly, what I'm teaching you now is everything you'd ever need to know about music theory if you're making electronic music. One up from the note is sharp. One down from the note is flat. So if I come down, this is F flat. But it's not because it's E. So F flat doesn't really exist. But that's all you need to know. So if I came down, this would technically be E flat. But it's not because it's D sharp. Going off on one. You just need to know the sharp is up one, flat is down one. So I then come to this and I see F sharp. It's here. So then we go from G, which is here, this note, to F sharp. They're so close to each other. But actually, those two notes will sound horrible together. It doesn't work by just making sure they're close to each other. So I had to take the G, which is hey brother, and pitch it down one. So now they're both in the same key of F sharp. So if I come back to this, hold on, Ableton, which is here, we were in Ableton. If I come and click on this, if you see it's pitched down. So what you do, if I click on this audio clip here now, it'll open up a load of settings over here, which is all covered in Ableton Fast Track. Okay, that's another thing which I always like to stress at this point. Do not panic if you are watching this going, what the heck? This is like, you know, science. You know, didn't want to do a science degree, Phil. Don't worry. This is all covered in Ableton Fast Track. You go through Ableton Fast Track, you will understand all of this stuff. Okay. So what you can do is you can pitch it up or down. So I've pitched it down one. Now, if I just put it back to 0, you'll notice they just kind of don't sound quite right.
Endless road to rediscover. Hey, sister, know the
yeah, so they just sound kind of odd, right? So you got to pitch it down one, and don't panic if you listen to that and you're like, well, it sounds good enough to me, Phil. You know, if it sounds good enough to you, that's okay. You know, it's just I'm on Instagram, right? So I've got purists watching me constantly screaming when something's not in the exact key, right? So I got to make sure this is right. And then we got here. Now it's -1.
hey, brother.
It's hard to explain. I can't really put it in words, but the two now go better. And we know they technically go better because they're now exactly the same key. Now, one thing which I do want to kind of stress as well is sometimes you will get a major scale and a minor scale. And it doesn't just work putting an F sharp major scale together and an F sharp minor scale together. That doesn't work. Oh, I'm going to go down a rabbit hole here. But basically, all you need to know is this, right? A key is a series of notes. Okay, a key is just a series of notes. So if I was to come to scale, and this is what's so freaking awesome about Ableton, is I can now go to this MIDI clip and say C major. And it'll highlight all of the keys in C major. So wherever I put notes now, as long as it's on a blue line, will be in the C major scale, right? Now I can do this other thing where I can click scale. And now all I have is the C major scale. So I don't have to think about it. I can come up here to this draw tool and I can go re like this. And wherever I put notes, it's all in key. Okay. But I never use this draw tool, by the way. I find it irritating. But I just wanted to give you a quick example. Now, here's the interesting thing. Every single key, did someone say something? Wait there, I'll do Q&A in a bit, okay, just in case anyone just spoke. Every single key has a relative major and minor scale. Now, I can somehow hear somebody, so I'm just now going to go on a quick hunt to see who's not on mute. I'm going to mute them. Okay, there, they are now muted. Okay, cool. So every key has a relative major and minor scale. Don't worry about all these other keys, because you come over here, you'll see 1,000 keys. Don't worry. Every single song you will be worried about will be in a major or a minor key, okay? So you just have to worry about the top two. Now, here's the thing. C major. Some of you with a, the astute of you will notice the C major scale is just the white keys. There's no black keys, right? Now, the A minor scale is just the white keys. So that's why the C major is the relative major to the A minor scale. They have exactly the same keys being used, okay? Now, how would you tell what the relative major and minor is? Well, all you have to remember is C major and A minor. C and A is relative major and minor, okay? That's all you have to remember. That's all I remember. And now I know that if I come to C, I can count down to A. 1, 2, 3. So the relative minor scale is always 3 below the relative major, okay? So for example, if I did have a song in a minor scale, let's say it was F major was our scale, well, I would know the relative minor key would be 1, 2, 3, which is D. So I now know I could pair up D minor and F major, and they would go perfectly because they're relative major and minor, they're using the same notes. This is a very complicated lesson, by the way, and unfortunately, there's no easy way than to just memorize what I just told you. But don't panic, because that's it. That's music theory for you, done. You know, like you never have to learn to play a piano now. Did that make sense? Is everyone happy that that made sense? You can understand why I landed it where I did. Cool. Now, so that's how I did it. Now, there's other interesting stuff going on here, which I'm going to show you anyway. Okay, so this track here didn't actually start like this. So I filtered. Okay, so one of the things I did was when I didn't have a filter on, the vocals were clashing with the track, right? If I take the filter off, now listen to it. Wait there. So what do I mean by clashing? They're competing. It's like they're still in the same frequency range, right? It's like I'm hearing do 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 and singing, and I'm like, I can't quite. You know, when you're in a here's a good way to put it for you. Have you ever been in a restaurant or a bar and you're speaking to your buddy at the bar and they're speaking, but you're having to filter out all the other noise in the bar to hear what your friend is saying? Like you're staring at you, especially all the DJs out there who are going deaf in their early 30s like me. It's so frustrating having like to watch my friend's mouth, because I'm like, I could barely hear you because of all this other sound in the bar, and it's kind of irritating, right? Well, that's what I mean by frequencies clashing. It's like, listen to your mate in the bar, and it's like, I can't hear you. So what we can do is we can get rid of any frequencies that are clashing. So I put on this filter that just filters down and then filters back up, because I want to build tension later in the track. Now notice it.
Brother, there's an
Thank you. I can hear my friends.
brother.
So that's what I did. So what I've done is I've got it coming along here, and then it just filters down at this point, right?
Hey, brother.
And then here, to build tension, it filters back up. When it filters back up, it suddenly becomes more difficult to hear the singing, which is kind of annoying. But that's the payoff of building tension back up.
Blood is thicker.
And people are already singing it at this point, right? People are screaming it at this point.
Blood is thicker.
Okay, that was another thing. Now, another thing for this track, which is another kind of element of confusion, is the track actually sounded like this. Let me take the filter off.
Stuff in my mind.
And then I realized that when I put this with the vocal, it just didn't really sound very good.
Brother, there's an endless road to rediscover.
It just didn't sound good. So I was like, and also the phrase didn't line up with the phrase. Like the vocals for "Hey Brother" were too long for how the distance. Because look, you can see the intro ends here, right? And then this is the drop, and the vocal was too long for it. It just the whole thing didn't work. So I had to then, if I just undo it, I found this little bit of the track right here that sounded like this. Let me just. I just found that, and I just repeated it. Let's take the filter off. And it's just got that kind of, rhythm. I was like, oh, that works better. So then I put the filter on, right? And then voila, you've got this.
Hey, brother, there's an endless.
And then when I wanted the track to build to the drop, which is now I can choose wherever the heck I want it to be, because I could repeat that bleeping sound for as long as I want. And then the only other thing I did that was interesting is to get a bit more of a flow from this bit here, where let's take the filter off, right? So from here, just notice how the flow from the intro drums to the thing just doesn't really go. Kind of awkward, right? So the answer to that is white noise. Now check it out. Somehow it kind of leads you into it better, especially when you mix in the filter. So so that's that, and it's kind of an interesting little skill. But here's the thing for you, right, is once you start making your full dance tracks, this is easy. Like this is just child's play once you've made your own tracks. So I wouldn't necessarily say focus on this, but I just thought there might be a few lessons in there that are of interest to you. Did you find that interesting? Give me a thumbs up if you learned something from that little session there. Awesome. Everyone but Frankie. Okay, right. Cool. So let's do it. Right. So we got some questions. So let's go into that. So Yvonne, you have a question?
Yeah. You just showed the pitch in the clip.
Oh, yeah.
And I checked in my Ableton. I don't have that. But is it the same as transpose?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And another question is, what about the scale? Because I don't see that in when I open my Ableton. You said you had the scale there. It has to be
in a MIDI clip. Has to be in a MIDI clip.
Yes.
Right. So you got a MIDI clip like this, and you click on it.
Yeah.
And you open it up, and you see the notes right here.
Is that also in Ableton 10?
Yeah, that'll be in every That'll be in every edition of Ableton. You have to be able to know what notes you're hitting, so the notes will be there.
Okay.
Can you see them? It's in the MIDI clip. It has to be in a MIDI clip, though.
Yeah, I am in a MIDI clip.
And you can't see a keyboard.
Yeah, I see a keyboard, but I don't see on the left side the scale.
Ah,
you have there on the left side scale, and then
that is a new feature in Ableton 11. But I have a workaround for that in Ableton Fast Track. So if you go to Ableton Fast Track, I've got a workaround for choosing this. If you go into this section, it's called choosing a key. I've got a workaround for that for you.
Okay, I'll check that.
Cool.
And I have a last question. I was making some drum racks for kicks, etc. But I didn't know how to keep them, so how to store them. So I have it in my track. I have the drum rack there. Downloaded all type of kicks in there.
Right.
Gave it a name, but then
let me show you. If you go to drums and you drag a drum rack in like this,
yeah,
and then you drag your own samples in.
Exactly.
There's a little save. It looks like a floppy disk, right?
Yeah.
Up here. And if you click that, you can then save it, and then you'll save it here in drum racks, or you can call it whatever you want. And now you can go and drag that into whatever subfolder you want, and it'll save whatever you have within that drum rack.
Oh, it's that simple. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Ali, do you have any more questions, Yvonne?
No, thank you.
Okay, cool. Ali, do you have a question?
Yes. Hey, Phil.
Hey.
So I wanted to just repeat the part you were talking about, the minor and major. You said they don't go together, and then you said like three relatives.
Yeah.
You were showing the C and A minor. Can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah. Okay, cool. So every scale has a relative major and minor scale, and they use the same notes. The scale that I always remember is C, which is all the white notes. So C
Right.
major is all the white notes, and the relative minor is A minor, is all the white notes as well. And the distance between these scales is the same constantly. So if you ever want to know, you just got to come to C and count down to A. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, okay.
Major is always at the top, minor is always at the bottom. So if you've got A major and you want to find the minor, you go on 3. 1, 2, 3. F sharp minor is the relative minor to A major.
Got it.
Awesome. Cool. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, cool. Sweet. Jeff, you have a question?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, last week you were going over the the structure, like intro, breakdown, and build. And I mean, I like EDM music as well, but I want to pick also. What inspired me was the free stuff in the mid '80s, like the high energy kind of dance music. Is that the same kind of structure for that, or is it different?
Yeah, so it's always going to be the same. You just find a song that you really like, and then you can borrow the structure from whatever the song that is, whether it's a film score, whether it's drum and bass, whether it's original kind of Chicago house music, whatever it is, right? You'll be able to just follow the structure and beat hack it. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
Cool. Okay, awesome. Any other questions?
No.
Cool. Frankie, you have a question? Can't hear you. Which is weird because your mic is off. Can anyone else hear Frankie?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, can hear you now. Yeah, awesome.
I had you on my DJ control. Thanks for pointing out me not paying attention. You're always on point with that, by the way.
Well, I got thumbs up from, because I've got you all open here, right? And I just saw everyone giving me thumbs up bar you. I was like, oh, great.
I lost a little bit of attention, and I tend to do that. It's a bad habit of mine.
No worries.
So I want to ask you, been in a little bit mental away from music and stuff, so got away with it. I'm trying to pick myself up, pump the brake, make good decisions. So I finally got around to your video, and I'm starting to produce DJ practice. Now, one thing that I got to in my track where it was off grid, I kind of understood that because I heard what you said when you did it, but visually, when I start playing around with the notes, what does off grid mean? Does it necessarily mean I'm off, like see the numbers at the top of that?
So just to clarify, Frankie, do you mean when you drag in a track, the track is not in the grid?
No,
Are
I
you
mean,
talking about Ableton, or are you talking about DJing, by the way?
okay, so we're talking about Ableton and building the melody. Remember when I sent my track in for a review, I don't know if you remember, it's been a month ago, and the melody was off grid. And you said, okay, we gotta kind of put it on grid because it was like stuttering. So I heard that part, but now I finally am getting to it to correct it. But when you say that, my head goes, well, what am I visually seeing to mean that my melody is actually off grid? Does that make sense?
Well, this is so tough because it's hard for me to give an example, but I could try and give you an example. Tell you why this is tough, right? Is because for me to show you like me clapping off beat, right? I could do that now, right? I put on MIDI, I put on this. I mean, it's actually difficult to clap off beat, but you see I'm just clapping off beat. And I know that's a ridiculously simplistic way to look at it, but if your melody is not going to the beat, it won't flow. For example, let me just go in. Now I see I've got to write a melody on the spot, which is always hard, but it doesn't matter. Let's give it a go. So I'm just going to go and get a synth and put Nexus in. And let's just say it's a bass note. I don't know if this is a pointless exercise, really, because, I'm just going to do an offbeat. I don't know if this is a waste of time, because I mean, I'm just going to do an offbeat melody, and we'll all know what that's going to sound like.
Okay, so here's the thing as well. I'm going to work on my Boxing Day track that you did review, and I am going to send it back to you to see if the melody is more on point.
Yeah, do that instead. Do that. It's pointless me doing an off. It's because it's everyone new. I could just put notes anywhere and go, see, it's not on grid. It doesn't work. If you send it in, and I'll help you, okay?
Okay, that's what I'll do. Let me get back to working on it and correcting it.
But if you've still got the video of where I went over it, right? So you can watch that back. Okay, cool, awesome.
So my question is, when I am watching it back, I think it's more just the visual. than it is like the sound. So, you know, when we're doing the grid, like when I'm moving the notes, I have like 1/2 and 1.3 and half and the other 1.3.
Right. Yeah. Well, you know, so this is the thing. Say you did right. So this would be absolutely on point.
Perfect.
This sound.
Yeah.
Okay. That's going to the beat. Now, you can't have this. Well, I mean, you could, but if you have it slightly off. So this would be here. Oh, come on. See how that note there is just a bit off? Now, I can't remember, but I can't remember exactly, but I think there was a couple of your notes were just slightly off like that. It's like, well, if you just move that along, I can't really, you'd have to send in the project and I'd have to show you. Otherwise, I feel like I'm patronizing you, showing you that, Frankie, and I don't want to. Like, that's obvious stuff, right?
Yeah, no, it's fine. I've been mentioned to, like, again, I've procrastinated enough where my gaps is quite a bit. So
send in the project and I'll have a look at it. I'll send it in and I'll have a look at it. Or if you struggle with it and you want, just send it to me and I'll help you out, okay?
Let me go through the whole video, work on it, and I will send it to you for sure.
Awesome. Cool.
Thank
Okay,
you.
cool. Do you have any questions, Frankie? Any other questions? Okay, cool. Okay, Kirsten, you have a question.
Yes, hi everyone. I had actually messaged you, Phil, about this. I got a MIDI pad, one of those like beat pads as a gift, and I didn't know if there were any benefits or tips or tricks for using it in Ableton, or should I just use the keyboard for everything?
Right. So what you mean is you've got a MIDI pack, which are pre-made MIDI clips, right? And you can drag them in. Is this what you mean?
No, I mean, like I've got one of those like boards. I have it right here. Maybe you'll see it. I got one of these little boards.
Oh, fine. Okay. Yeah.
If that was useful in Ableton or not.
It's kind of useful, but do you know what? It's one of these things. The more I've made music over the years, the less I found myself using. I've got an Ableton Push, which is a similar kind of thing. And you could sit there, but the thing is, you've got to get just as good as putting in a drum. You got to get good at going with your fingers, right? But if you're making house music anyway, right?
Yeah.
So it's all very, like you wouldn't, for example, you'd use the drums if you wanted to drum in a beat, right? But then you've got to go and get good at drumming in a beat. And the thing with house music is it's so systematic anyway. I mean, really, it really is, I mean, that's what I love about it. But if I was to go to a drum rack here and just drag a drum rack in here, like this, and then come to here, right? 99% of house beats are a kick drum, or it says a bass drum here, which is this. Let me just go and solo this. Oh, that's not soloing it. Let's turn this up a bit. Wow, that is so quiet. I have no idea why that's so quiet. I don't know. But you can still hear it, right? So
yeah.
Okay, and then, so it's that, and then there's a clap on every other kick, and there's a hi-hat between every single kick, like this. Oh, that's the conga hi-hat here. And I can put that in so much easier than I can trying to play it.
That's what I figured. By the time you map it and everything else, I was like, what's the point? But I was just curious if there was any benefit.
And to be honest with you, past the kick and the clap, I hardly ever try and put in a rhythm myself. Like all the time, I will go to my pre-made samples like tech house. What am I doing here? Top loops. And I go to hi-hats and I'd go and get, tech house hi-hats, and I just drag that in, right? Because straight away, I'd never try and do it myself because there's so many interesting, there's so many other interesting. Anyway, so you get the idea.
Well, that makes sense. I appreciate it.
Cool. Sweet. Yeah. Alex, you have a question? Alex, can you hear? Just give me a thumbs up just so I know you're... Okay, cool. You've got to unmute yourself. Do you know how to do that? I think you're on a phone. I think with a phone, maybe you have to press a button to speak.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay. Hi, Phil.
Hi.
Hi. I'm only like a couple of weeks into the program. I texted you the other day. I'm having real problems with Ableton. So what it is, I can't seem to drag. So I went to the first exercise on EDM coaching, downloaded the samples that you provided, but for whatever reason, I just can't. Every time I try and drag anything into the audio clips, I just get like a no entry type sign keeps appearing.
Okay, cool. By the way,
I ran into this. I'm sorry, I ran into the same problem. And if you drag it and you make your own folder, it won't pull from your files, but it will pull from a single folder that you make on your home screen, and then you can enter them from there.
So if I create my own folder on my desktop,
yes,
if new folder, rename it and then add it,
and then drop all those samples in there. That's
okay.
For me, it took me a while to figure out.
So yeah, so I mean, just so you know, I have all of my samples on an external hard drive. So I would recommend you do that so it doesn't clog up your computer. So have a folder called like Alex's Tunes or whatever. And then in that, you'll have samples. And then you'd be wise to separate all your samples out as well, because after a year of doing this, you're going to have so many samples into kicks, hi-hats, claps. Sort them. Once they're in there, then drag them into Ableton. But often, once you've got them sorted really nicely, you can just come here and click Add Folder, and then just go and grab that folder called Alex's folder, and it'll be all there sorted for you nicely, right?
Okay.
So give that a go and see if that works.
Okay, and in terms of because I was thinking about getting a Mac because I've currently got Windows. Do you know if there's any preference for music production with Macs or PC?
No, I don't think there's any difference. Ableton will work just as well on either. Just use whatever you're most comfortable with.
Get rid of Windows.
Well, I'm not having that debate on here, but basically use whatever you like.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yep, happy with
Okay. Now, Alex, did I get back to you when you text me?
that. No.
Right. I don't think you text me. Because when you said I texted you the other day, I can't remember seeing a text, and I'm very good at getting back to these messages.
Okay.
So,
I'll have to check.
Look, you're all here now. You're all on the program. We'll put it in here, right? Look here. So it's +44 7850 740 350. That's my number. So save it. Any questions, you message me. If any of you message me and I don't message back, I haven't got it, because I'm very good at getting back to people. And when you said it then, I was like, I can't remember you asking me this. So double check you've got the right number. You're obviously in Britain, right?
Yeah.
Fine. So you wouldn't need the +44 anyway, but yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Awesome. Cool. Any other questions, Alex? Just let me know. Okay.
Thanks, Phil. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Abbas, you have a question as well. Oh, you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do that. Hi, hello everyone.
Hey.
I noticed. I mean, of course, most of your tutorials, your videos on the website, they're in Ableton 10, and there's some differences between Ableton 10 and 11.
Yeah.
Right now I'm using the trial version of it, but is it limited in any way when you're using the trial version? Like until I noticed some plugins maybe not there, or the Max for Live, or some certain things.
Right. Good question. That is a good question. I was under the impression if you had the free full trial, you were using the full program. That was the impression I had. I don't know if anyone knows better. It's been a long time since I used the trial version of Ableton.
Abbas, have you got the trial of Ableton Suite or just Ableton Basic? Because if you've got the trial of the basic Ableton, it'll only give you like 4 lanes and very limited features. If you get the trial of Ableton Suite, you get the whole lot.
Okay, it says Ableton Live 11 trial. Usually I get 4 lanes when I open the program.
Okay, that's you. Okay, right. So you have the light version of Ableton. You don't have the full trial.
Okay.
So there's a difference between the two. Am I right here? Has anybody else experienced this recently? There's a difference between having the light version of Ableton and having a full free trial. So you might want to either go and download the full free trial off Ableton, that's probably what you want to do next.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay,
Awesome.
I'll look into that again, because I noticed that there were some differences, especially, I mean, of course, that your tutorials are in Ableton 10, so I wasn't sure if it's just a difference between 10 and 11,
Right.
and, you know, trial, no trial, yeah.
No, it's not that. And I also want to address that. The version of Ableton, which is Ableton 10, they're very similar. They've just been upgrades. And every time there's an upgrade, I jump in, I go, and make another video. Hey guys, you just watched that video there, but this, you know, like there's a whole section in automation where you have to now hit a little button to get the automation aids. And I will have updated videos throughout the training. So if there's ever something you're like, oh, I don't think this tallies up with what Phil said, just message me. And if it's not there, I'll make a video on it. Okay.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Cool. Sweet. Brooklyn, you have a question?
Yeah. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Just a question on the drum loop. I know that you've said before that to put each part of the drums like in a separate lane.
Yeah.
So when you have a loop like that, where you have the hats and the kick and everything built in, like how do you manage that?
So let's say, for example, you did have this thing going on, right? And you had all this stuff going on here. And you were like, okay, cool. Well, I'm happy with that now. What I would honestly do at that point is just go duplicate, duplicate, duplicate. And I'd rename this one drum. That's bad. This one would be clap. That one would be hi-hat. And on this one, I'd remove everything that wasn't the drum. On this one, I'd remove everything that wasn't the clap. And then on that one, I'd remove everything that wasn't the hi-hats, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Now you've got complete control over the volume of each.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, cool. Any other questions? I think we're all good. Sweet. Okay, cool. So what we've got here is Yvonne has sent in the track. So I'm going to open this up and have a listen to this. So,
yeah, but Phil, I'm not sure I did it right, because I tried it the whole day yesterday and earlier this week. And when I download it and upload it again in Ableton, then a lot of samples are deactivated. And I watched your tutorial like 10 times.
Well, let's have a go and let's see. So right. So the project you sent is this, right? So if I open up, yeah. So when it's done right, what you get is you get backup and samples and sound. You get all these additional lanes, right? So looking at this now, I can see all I've got is this folder here. And when I open it up, all that is the Ableton. So what I now have is your project, which has some sounds, right, which are the Ableton stock sounds.
Yeah.
But what it doesn't have is any additional samples. So there's sample offline. So anything else that you've added in, I don't have, because it needs to be grouped. So you did it where you just saved it and you went to file and you went to collect all and save, right?
Yes, I did that. Yes. And I saved it on the desktop, like you said in the tutorial. And I flattened all the MIDI tracks.
Okay.
And then did save, collect all and save. I did it like 5 times, but it is just simply not working.
I just find that I don't see, this is a bit of an issue, because as far as I'm concerned, that is a bug. Because let's say, for example, if I now create a new lane here, and in this lane, I go and grab a drum loop like this. So now this has now got a drum loop. And I'm now going to go file, save all, or sorry, save as. I'm going to call it, well, it doesn't matter, right? Save it, whatever, to my desktop. And I'm just going to click save. Okay. Now, straight away, if I open this up, you can see it's got project info and then it's got the project. But now I want to save everything inside this project, including this sample that I've just added. So now I come here and I click file and I click save, collect all and save. And I make sure all of these say yes.
Yeah.
And I say, okay. And now when I open it, I now have samples. And inside that sample is, lo and behold, the loop that I dragged in. So I past that point, I'm stuck on how I can help here.
Yeah, I even tried it with just a test sample with only 3 lanes in there. And even that one didn't work.
And so let me just confirm, when you click collect all and save, you don't see this samples file. That just doesn't appear.
I see it, but when I click on it, like what you showed in the tutorial, then you hear the sound. That doesn't work with me.
But okay, so but here's the question, right? When you save it, you can see samples and imported, right?
Yes. Yes.
So then why, when I go to my Dropbox here and I go to your track, why do I not see it? Because that now tells me that you are not uploading it right, because you see the file that says samples, but I don't see the file that says samples.
Yeah.
So that tells me you just haven't uploaded it right. Because otherwise I would see it too. Now that's not me having a go at you. That's me trying to figure out what could possibly have gone wrong here. But you are seeing more than what I am seeing. Therefore, the fault here is that the upload is not being correct. So double check that the file that you uploaded or sent to me has definitely got all of the folders.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to try it again this week. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And guys, the reason I kind of stick on this topic is this is kind of a complicated thing. The way Ableton works, for anybody who doesn't know, is Ableton doesn't store all of the samples in it. So if I drag a drum loop into Ableton and then save that project, that sample is not saved in that project automatically. What Ableton is doing, which is what most computer programs does, is it goes, we know that that drum loop is stored over on that hard drive over there. So when we play it in Ableton, it's playing from that hard drive over there. And it means Ableton doesn't get slowed down and get all clunky as many files as you want thrown, because it's all just running off a hard drive or somewhere else on the computer. Therefore, when you send me your projects to listen to, we have to have a way to gather up all of these files and collect and save them. So when I open them up, I can see all the files you used, which is why I did that thing up here. I say file save, and then I went collect all and save.
Yeah.
And once you did that, you'll see that suddenly I had additional files because it had collected all of them and saved them. Now I've got a whole section in EDM coaching called how to send me your music. And you'll notice when you go in it, there's like 5 videos now, right? Because this seems to be a buggy process. And I don't know why, but it just seems to be. So I've got like one video on how you do it, another video on how to do it if for some reason it's not working, and another video which is like a checklist, like just double check that the samples are all there and stuff. So when you send it to me, you know 100%. So Yvonne, I think something's gone wrong along the way. Double check any issues during the week, message me, and I'll be at hand to just double check before next week's call, okay?
Okay. Yeah.
Any issues you have, let me know though, okay? Okay, sweet. So look, let's go and we'll review another track instead. So, and we'll do Yvonne's next week. So if I go to EDM tracks, so Natasha, we did your track, right? We've done this one. We did it.
Yes, we did.
We did that. I gotta get into the habit of deleting these, because otherwise I'm going to confuse myself here. Yvonne, I'm going to delete yours because you're going to resend that properly, right? So I'm going to put that down here as well. Andres on the call? I don't think so. And also that has been there for so long. It's been there for months. I don't think, I'll leave it there just in case. Is Justin on the call? So I want to go over someone's track who's actually here. Curtis, are you on the call? I'm just scanning through all the names here. I don't think they are. No, it's okay. So here's the thing, right? And here's, I'm always reluctant to go through someone's project who's not on a call.
Yeah, I'm on the call. Yeah.
Oh, you're on the call. Cool.
Yeah.
Curtis, right? Awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet. Right, we'll do your project then. Awesome. Okay, let me open this up. So look, Curtis, why don't you let me know what it is that you're currently not happy about with this project? And by the way, what I was going to say just before Curtis jumped in there is the reason why I like to go through a track when somebody's actually on the call is because for me, this whole project now about me helping you guys is not about me teaching you how to make the music I like, it's about teaching you how to make the music you like, right? Now, what this results in is you will go and try and make whatever music it is you like, right? Whether it's trance, drum and bass, tech house, whatever. And I will have my own way of doing things, right? Because I kind of lean more towards bass house, tech house music, which is awesome. If you're making the same music as me, then I can kind of just go at it, right? But if you're making a type of music that I don't typically make, then now I want to help you make the music you make, which is why, as you can see, Curtis has done this. He's got a reference track at the top. And what I was about to ask then is, what is it that you don't like about your track? that this other artist is doing, and now I will show you how to do that thing. And we repeat that process and repeat that process, and everyone learns from everyone else. And before you know it, there's no more questions, right? You just know how to do stuff.
Yeah.
So
that's
the question I put to you. Yeah.
Yeah. So to start with it,
yeah,
my reference track, I've gone a bit off my reference track. It's not totally, I've gone a bit away from my reference track and working on something more creative.
Okay.
But what I'm not happy with is I'm not sure what I need to add additionally. That I feel like if I add more samples to the track, it's coming too cluttered and too overlapping and too busy.
Okay, too cluttered, too busy, and you don't know what to add, right?
Yeah.
To add. Okay. Now, here's the other thing, and I just want to approach this topic because this is something that a lot of people will face. You'll say to yourself, I've got a reference track and I want to make a track that sounds similar to it. But obviously we don't want to just replicate it exactly, although that's not the worst thing in the world. Sometimes you can just replicate it perfectly. And then once it's replicated, go and change the bass notes, change the drums, change the melody, and boom, you've got your own track. So it's not necessarily the worst thing to do. So you want to change it up a bit, but you also want to be wary of going too far away from your reference track. The reason for this is because you like that reference track for a reason and you set off to make it. So it might be that actually, you know, you've got the drums and the bass line are exactly what you want, and now you're going to move it away. But you want to make sure that you don't want to just move away so far from the reference track that when I listen to the one and the other, they're completely different songs. Because all I'll be doing then is kind of trying to draw you back to your reference track, if that makes sense. And I haven't listened yet, but I'll have a listen now and I'll let you know. So the main thing you're kind of concerned about at this current moment in time is what to add, what to take away, what the next steps are, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And I can see you've kind of done about the first kind of first minute and 45 seconds of this, right? Because this isn't completed, I can kind of tell, right?
No.
Okay, cool.
This is, yeah.
So let's have a listen.
The skeleton.
Awesome, cool. So let's have a listen.
Just a feeling, just a feeling, just a feeling. Just a feeling, just a feeling, just a feeling. Just a feeling, just a feeling, just a feeling. Just a feeling, just a feeling, just a feeling.
Okay, cool. That's so okay. Well, first things first, this is pretty awesome, right? I mean, this sounds pretty cool to me. You definitely have not overdone it. There's not too many elements in here. In fact, you kind of got this pretty good, in my opinion, right? I mean, like, that sounds pretty awesome. So that's pretty good, right? So you've got the levels are quite good. Everything that's there is clear and obvious. Like, I can clearly hear the kick, the hi-hat, the clap. The bass line's good, and the vocal's not overdone either. So, like, by the way, is this the first track you've ever made, or have you made a few before?
I've started on a couple, but then haven't finished, and then started on more projects. And
cool.
This is the one I've got through most of.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
So this is good. And by the way, I'm guessing as well that this is a pre-made bass line, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So okay, cool. So where would you go from here? So let's have a listen to your reference, and because all the answers will be there, right? Sweet. Okay, cool. So you've done a good job here. So in fact, okay, so first things first, right? They've actually got a bass line going in the intro. So your track doesn't really have a bass line. They got this low kind of thing going on, okay, which you don't have. But you can get that pretty quickly. The first thing I would do, so if I was going to progress this track from here onwards, I would think to myself about this bass. You want to sidechain this. It'll just sound better straight away, okay? Sidechain is basically when the kick hits, the volume drops and the volume comes back up. I explain this a lot more in Ableton Fast Track, so I'm not going to spend too much time explaining it here. But I'm just going to drag in a sidechain plugin. That's too long, so I'm going to make this shorter. Again, this is all covered in Ableton Fast Track, so I'm just going to make this shorter. Okay. That's just for my, neuroses. Another thing I've noticed, your clip at the beginning has a fade, okay? If you all need to do this setting, like right now, okay? You got to go to Ableton, go to Preferences. You've got to go to MIDI. Oh, no, hold on, folder. Let me just find it first. Library, plugins, Warp, record, warp, and launch. And you've got to come to this one here, which is create fades on clip edges. Turn that off. Just that's a blanket thing you've all got to do. What that does is Ableton doesn't want things to pop and crackle, right? Which is kind of complicated. And I don't want to go too much down a rabbit hole, but in a nutshell, you'll notice that on all these clips here, the line kind of curves in. Now that will kind of deaden the sound on a lot, especially things with like kicks and stuff like that, because the kick is where the transient comes in. And it means that when you drag in a clip, it doesn't have that fade. It just starts like that, which is exactly what you need to be doing. So that's the first thing. Now, let's go back to this track. What are your next steps? Well, there's a bass line going at the beginning of this track, but it's kind of just low and rumbling and in the background. So I would consider bringing this across to here. So there actually is a bass line at the beginning. But I'm going to filter it because this track here you're listening to is just a filtered bit. There's stuff going on there, but it's not audible really. So I might even be tempted to put this on two different lanes because we might need to change the volume, right? So I'm going to put this on that lane and that on that lane. Now we've got this. Oh, so that's the reference. Okay, and I'm going to filter this bass. So I'm going to solo this. And I'm going to come and I'm going to get auto filter on it and just filter down. Okay, now that's really quiet, so I may need to turn the volume up a little bit here, right? This is why I put it on its own lane. I separate lanes if I want to change volume. See, we've now got that low kind of rumble going on here. I'm actually going to make this bit just playing with the sidechain a bit here. Maybe even lower. Okay. The next thing is your track kind of has a bit more energy. And by the way, the great thing about filtering this is now when the bass line does kick in, it's going to have more kind of oomph as well. Okay. The next thing I noticed about your reference track is it kind of has more energy, right from the get-go. That comes from the hi-hats, okay? So straight away, you probably want to turn your hi-hats up. So this is it without. But the hi-hats is not enough going on. If you listen to your reference track, there's so much, they've got a more exciting loop. So the next thing I would probably do if I was you is just find a more exciting drum loop, right? So I've got these already, but you would probably go to somewhere like Splice and find some. And we go to all folders and we get maybe like G house. And then I try one of these instead, right? Hold on, guys. I'm just playing around here. I'll be with you in 2, and I'm going to explain exactly what I'm doing. Yeah, that's a little bit more on point with our reference now. And that's come from louder, like more percussive, kind of more hi-hats is more going on, right? Like we can visually see it. Your hi-hats look like this, whereas the hi-hats I put in look like this. And then that just adds to the, it's more high energy. So that would be the next thing I do. The next thing I'm thinking is when I listen to it, their kick isn't that. You've taken a lot of the highs out of this kick, and that track hasn't actually done it. And your beginning of your track sounds thin and like it hasn't got enough going on. Well, it's actually because you just hike past the kick too much. So I'd actually just get rid of that. So it comes straight in with it, right? And already it kind of, now we've matched the energy of your track and your reference track. This is your reference track. In fact, our whole track's just kind of too loud at this point. So I'm just going to come and turn this down a bit, okay? Okay, cool. So that's that. The next thing, let's have another quick listen. Bear with me, I'm just thinking here what's the next thing I would do. I'd listen to this bit here as well. They've got like a bit more going on there. They've got more like a drum fill. So I'd probably come in here at this point and throw like a drum fill in here. So again, you can go and get drum fills. Like there's loads of pre-made ones, right? So I can come to 128. Let's kind of go to these. Well, that'll do for now. I'm not going to spend hours searching for the perfect drum fill, but right, I'll just put that in there. So their drum goes all the way up to here, their hi-hats go up all the way up to here, and that goes all the way up to here, and then there's this bit here where there's a drum fill, so it sounds like. And they've also got a vocal, right? So you can go and get a vocal, and all I'm really doing, let me just explain. All I'm doing is listening to their track and going, because one of your questions was, have I got too much stuff? Is it too cluttered? The answer was no, it was not too cluttered. In fact, I think the reason why your reference track has more energy is because there was more going on. And that we've done that by adding in more hi-hats. So that was the question of, is it too cluttered? Is it too busy? Now, the next thing is you don't know what to add, right? So I'm kind of answering the question of what to add. And the way I answer the question is I just listen to what is going on in your reference track and adding it, right? So we're just listening to your reference track here. I know I can hear a kind of sound come in. So I've just added my own drum fill because that's what they've done. They've also got this really kind of bright white noise here. So you've got this. It's not as bright as there. So I'd probably add more kind of white noise here, like a sweep up, and I'd get like a really kind of something a bit more like this kind of sounding rather than what you've got. So it gets really bright. So now we've got this going on. That's too quiet. Let's do that. And make sure the white noise is sweet. Right, so we've got that kind of thing going on. And they've also got a vocal in here I can hear, right? It's like a little kind of vocal. So maybe you could throw a vocal in, and again, it's the same kind of thing, right? At this point, I've downloaded these already, but you would easily just go and find your own and
Baila conmigo.
You know, chuck that in there, right? And now you've got
Baila conmigo. Baila conmigo.
Or even you've already got a vocal, right? You could potentially have just used a little bit of that. And then let's have another listen. What else have they got in their track that you don't have? Well, there's a few things going on here. They've got that kind of sound. So you might want to go and add your own kind of bleepy sound, right? In that exact point. They've got like that horn kind of sound that comes in at the beginning. So you could potentially go and put a horn sound. Listen to it here. I can also hear the keys and you could add these. You could go and find a keyboard sound and add that in. And see, like all I'm doing, I mean, I could keep going and going and going to the end of the song, but that's all you're really doing is you're just listening and going, what have they got? Have they got that kind of bleepy sound? I'm going to put a bleepy sound in. Have they got these kind of piano sounds? I'm going to put a piano sound in. And you build it up and up and up. And I'm not even convinced that is the drop. Is it? The drop's over here. So. It's very similar. Oh. I can hear white noise coming down. So I would go and add white noise coming down as well, right? So I can get this white noise that we built up, flip it, and have that same white noise coming down. You know, go and get a horn sound in here as well. I mean, like, I'll show you how I would do that. I could just come and get a MIDI clip like this, add that in, put a horn sound at the beginning. Do we know what key? C minor. Awesome, cool. So put C in here and then go to, you know, you'd either go and search for a horn sound and then, you know, I might even have some horn, movie horn, C minor. That's not gonna, they're not quite right. So at that point, I would probably use more like a synthy kind of horn sound. So I'd go to synths here. I just know I can get a horn sound quickly on this. So then I come to brass. Maybe even that kind of sound, right? And then that's too high, right? So I'm going to put that down.
Baila conmigo.
Can hear it.
Baila conmigo.
And then, you know, you might try out a couple of different kind of. It's too much, right? But you know, before you know it, you're playing around, and it's like, well, actually, there's something kind of cool about having sound. and then maybe that's looped and that's just another element you've added. Because look, when you start making music, excuse the swearing, but it's a bit like you throw shit at a wall and see what sticks. So you're playing around at the beginning, and then the mixing part of it is where you go, actually, that sounds horrible, I'm taking that away. But you're just throwing stuff in. And also, even though your reference track is in C, now I listen to it, that sounds horrible. So I'm guessing this is D minor, right? So that your horn doesn't need to be in C, it needs to be in D minor. It is C, D. Sounds weird, but you get the idea. I'm just listening to the reference, going, what have they got? What can I add in that's similar? Where do they put their drums? Where do they take their drums away? And I would just spend a lot more time analyzing your reference track. I kind of feel like I've kind of monologued here a bit, but can I just ask, have people got value from watching me do that for the last 10, 20 minutes? Like, has that helped just watching me do that and like understanding how I would go about picking this track apart? And would you agree that we've now matched the energy? Like, this is the reference. And our track now comes in with a similar energy. It's a lot more high energy now, rather than what it was before, which is this. Well, and also the kick was high pass and stuff, but yeah. Sweet. Has that helped? Is that kind of, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Was there anything in particular you kind of took from that and you were like, you know?
I guess it was just in the reference track, not knowing what sounds I'm listening to add in, if that makes sense.
Right, yeah. So if you're ever in a situation where you're listening to a track and you're like, I can hear these sounds, but I don't know what those sounds are, just jump on, send me a text, say, hey, Phil, I'm listening to this track. At 1 minute, 26 seconds, this weird sound comes in. What sound is it? And I'll go, oh, that's a horn, right? And then you can then go and you just literally do this, right? You go to Splice, and then you would go to sounds, and you go to horn. And once you've gone to horn, oh, great, here we go. For those of you who've been here before, you'll know I'm the worst representative of Splice ever. I'm just terrible at it. But you can go to samples, and then you can go to key, and you'll go, well, I'm in D minor, right? And now it'll sort all the horn sounds here, right? So now we can have a listen. What I'm interested in, straight away noticing, these are loops. We don't want loops. We want one shot. So we're going to go to type, and we're going to go to one shot. And then close it, and now let's have a listen. Nice. Cool, that one sounds exactly like the one we wanted, right? So you just go and download that now. I'm always so reluctant about demonstrating Splice because I am just, for some reason, it never works. But let's give it a go. Hopefully it has worked today. This freaking program, like, the sound should be there. I just don't want to. Oh, wait, no, there it is. It's there. Yes. Okay, so close this down. And then lo and behold, I can now go and put an audio lane in and then just drag this. Personally, I wouldn't just drag it from Splice in. I would take this sample, go and put it in my brass sounds folder so it's there for future, and then drag it in. But just for time's sake here, you can just drag in this sound here. And now, so remember the process. Phil, I don't know what this sound is. And I go, oh, it's a horn. And then you go and type into horns, and now you've got this sound, which we can turn out. Yeah, so, and then you've got this awesome kind of thing, which, you know. Voila, you've got horns in your track, right? Does that help, Curtis?
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Awesome, cool. Okay, do you have any other questions?
That's all for, yeah, for the moment. That's all good. Thank you.
Awesome, cool. Okay, Kyle, you have a question?
Yeah, I sent you the track the other day, just as it was a kind of a something I got inspired by. When I'm taking it into a track that I want to model it after to hack that track, it's in a different key. So would I go with the original key or would I go with the new, like the hack track key?
Good question. I will always make sure I'm writing my track in the same key as my reference. The reason is when it gets to the final stages and you're thinking to yourself, why is my bass just not sounding like the bass in the track that you're referencing? You are going to hit so many brick walls if you're writing something in a higher key and your track you're referencing is this low thumpy bass and your bass is like, why is my bass lacking? If you're in the wrong key, you're never going to get it to sound exactly the same as your reference. So if you like a track that's in a certain key, always write in that key because there's going to be something about that key that you like.
Okay. Yeah, the melody was of another song was in another key, and then I wanted to hack it with another song. So I guess that was my...
Right. So then you'd actually do what I did right at the beginning of this, right? You'd go and find the relation between the two keys. You'd write your new song in the key of the track you like the reference of, your beat hacking track. And you take your a cappella, because I'm assuming you're doing a remix, right? So you take your a cappella and then you would bump it into the key of that track or the relative major or minor.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's it does a little bit. It was just that hook off of a Coldplay song, which is not usually going to be a dance track, and then I was going to be inspired by a Marshmello track that I wanted to fit it to, and so it was two
now I
different
remember
things.
the track you sent. Right. So you would take the hook. Oh no. Okay. Fine. So the thing you sent me was a MIDI track of a Marshmello. Right. Okay. You would just bump that into the right key.
Gotcha.
And that's easy enough to do, right?
Okay.
You just grab it and just go d until it's in the right key.
And so I won't have to reorganize the melody. It'll actually slip it. If I slip it into the right key,
Well, unless you're doing it in a major key and the other track is in a minor key, but then you can either use the relative major and minor rule that I taught earlier on, or you just go and find the notes that aren't in that key and bump it so they are into the right key by going to scale in your MIDI clip. Like,
okay, cool.
Right? So like, for example, if I had notes here, and I was like, well, actually, I just realized my reference track is F sharp minor. Then I go, oh, this note here is actually, weirdly, all the notes are in the right key. How weird is that? But, you know, I might have had a note here, for example. And when I click scale or fold, I now notice, there's that one note that's not in the right key. So then I just bump it into the right key and it'll usually sound right, you know? Yeah. Awesome. Does that answer your question, Carl?
Yes.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Cool. Natasha, you have a question?
Yes, I had a question about white noise. Is it something that you buy on Splice or that you can create on your own with Serum? And also what volume, whenever you put white noise on the whole track, what volume should the white noise be?
Cool. So you can make white noise yourself. So for example, if you were to go and get Serum, you can drag it in, and Serum has a noise section. So you just turn off all other oscillators. And now if I was to go and get a MIDI clip here, oh, come on. Wait. Insert MIDI clip. And now if I go and put a note in and stretch it out and turn the volume up, you'll hear if I solo this. And there's loads of different white noise as well. Like, there's different random noises. So you can make your own white noise. And then if you wanted to make like a filtered noise, like that kind of sound, that's just a filter on white noise, right? So, so all you would do is you just go put an auto filter on it and then just turn that up. So that's how you'd make your own. But in all honesty, I just go and download white noise off Splice. And then you can just get, I mean, and I'll get loads of white noise, as long as you've sorted it nicely. So if you come and see the way I've sorted my white noise, all folders, I've come down to here and I've got white noise, and I've got things like static, which is just stable. I've got, sorry for deafening everybody, I've got sweep up noises, right, which is sweeping up. I've got sweeping up, sweeping down, transitional. Shut up. So that's question number one. Question number two is how loud? Well, I always reference, right? So if I'm listening to this track here, and then listen to my track, my white noise is too loud. So I just need to turn it down a bit, right?
Baila conmigo.
And then I just reference it. I'm constantly listening, like how loud is my reference track's white noise? How loud is their kick drum? How loud is this? And I just reference it back and forth.
But the reason why I'm asking is because I don't necessarily hear white noise in my songs in the reference tracks.
Right, then don't use it. You don't have to use it then.
But is it something that is always happening? Like maybe like almost like a ghost sound that is.
No, that's definitely not happening. There's a thing called dithering. I'm not even going to get into it. No, if you can't hear white noise, don't use it. Never think you have to put a sound into your mix that you can't hear. Like, in fact, that's a terrible idea because that sound's just there. And it's like it's taking up room in the mix. So try and clean those sounds out, you know? Like, you'll have noticed when I was listening to this project by Curtis here, at one point, I just turned off these hi-hats because couldn't hear them. So I'd either have to turn that volume up or get rid of them. But because they were doing the same thing as that other thing that I added in, I just got rid of them. So mixing for me is getting rid of stuff 90% of the time. You know, if you listen to any of my tracks, they're really just quite simple, as all the tracks any of you listen to are as well. I mean, even the tracks you listen to that sound really complicated, you'll bet your bottom dollar there's probably no more than 3 or 4 things happening at any one time. You know, that's the art of making this dance music, is like making the small things sound big. Like, you know, like even this track here is a kick drum, a loop, and a bass line. And actually, you know, that could be, if I just took the bass line, I took the clap, I took the kick, and I took the hi-hats. That's 4 elements, right? This could be played in a club. So it's about kind of making those small elements sound good rather than feeling like you have to add loads of stuff. Does that help, Natasha?
It does.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Cool. Okay, Derek, you have a question?
Yeah, Phil, I wanted to go back to the Camelot wheel that you were showing.
Yeah.
I thought I remember hearing something to the degree of hearing like one of those keys or one of those ranges of the wheel that you can move over one or down one, and those are like complementary keys.
Right.
Do I have that right? Or
yeah, they are, and that does kind of work. But here's the thing. If you're doing a remix, right, and you've got a song that's C minor, right? Look, let me give you in fact, I can explain this to you. So let's say there's C minor and G minor. The reason why they complement each other is because if you come here and we open this up, and let's just zoom in a bit, and we go to C minor and go to fold. Oh no, scale. Oh, this is going to be complicated. This is a complicated one. Let's just do C. Okay, so let's do C major. Okay, so we're going to go to C major here, which I know is all the white keys. So C major, it's all the white keys. Now, why is that? So you know you can go one to the right or one to the left typically when you're DJing. Why does C major go well with G major? Well, because if we go and we just select G major now, it's just one black note. They're so similar. Like they're so similar to each other, which is why C major goes with G major, right? And if you went the other way to F major, let's do that. So we're just going to go to F major. It's just one note different. You see, there's just one black note's been added. Okay. So the reason why those scales typically work is because the vast majority of the notes are in both key. However, if you are going to do a remix and your song is in C minor and the vocal is in C minor, you would, in your reference track, the track you're beat hacking is in G minor. That probably will work, but you're better off just bumping C to a G at that point and then match them perfectly, right? So yeah, so the answer to your question is yes, it does work. And that's why. But you might as well put them in the same key if you can, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Awesome. Do you have any other questions?
No, that was the only one.
Awesome.
Thanks, man.
Cool. So there we go. That's the end of the call. So does anybody have any other questions before we wrap anything up? Oh yeah, Ali, you do.
Just a quick one.
Yeah.
Just you said bump it up to G major, bump it up in that MIDI clip that you raise the pitch, right? You increase the pitch like
Well,
one.
yeah, like for example, if you had a bass line that was all in C like this, and then you
I mean the vocal you were talking about. So how
the
you
vocal, yeah. So yeah, so let's do this example then. So well actually these are quite a distance apart. So if things are too far apart, okay, this is kind of confusing now, but if you're going from C to G, that's quite a jump from C. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4 semitones different. That vocal will sound different at that point, right? If I was to go and take this Spanish clip here, right?
Baila conmigo.
Okay, and let's say that was in complex, and I was going to bump this up 4 or down 4, 2, 3, 4. This is going to sound vastly different.
Baila conmigo.
Now that does still kind of work, and you'll find a lot of people do remixes where the vocals just are completely different pitches. And by the way, most people on the dance floor will not really think, oh, well, this is weird. They've pitched that Avicii vocal down 4 semitones. Everyone just sings along, right? So no one really cares. So if in this situation, I was going from C major to G major, I might just lump it and go, let's just leave it in C major because the keys are close enough and that would work. But if they're just 1 or 2 out, then I do then typically go and just bump them up or down. Or I would just go, I'm just going to put the whole thing in, you know, the correct key, which is 4 minor.
Baila conmigo.
That answer your question? It's kind of like, okay, here's my final conclusion on this. You do have to just use your ears. That's a horrible thing to hear someone like me say. And I hated hearing people on YouTube when I was trying to learn this stuff go, just use your ears. Because like, well, no, because to me, that sounds good. And for some reason, it's not good, you know, and my ears often lied to me, you know, like in the same way I said to you, if you were DJing in a club and you took an Avicii song and bumped it down 4 semitones, no one's really thinking anything of it. But if you started playing the Avicii track and then bumped it down 4 semitones while it was playing, people were like, what the heck is going on, right? So where am I going with this? Even though I say to you, use your ears, if in doubt, follow the technical rules, right? Where you just go, well, you know, because like I showed you at the beginning, that Avicii track that I layered, when it was in the wrong key, it kind of still sounded okay, right? I mean, remember I did that and it was like, actually, that sounds fine. But when I knew technically it was in the wrong key, so I bumped it down 1. And I was like, oh yeah, that does sound better. So it wouldn't really matter, but now I know it's right because I know it's right, even if my ears would fool me.
Right.
So use your ears, but use your ears. If it sounds good, go for it. But if in doubt, follow the rules and you know it's right.
All right. Thank you, man.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Cool. Does that make sense what I just said then about the whole using your ears and if in doubt? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Cool. Sweet. So that's everything. Now look, I'll leave you with this interesting thing that I've been doing recently, which is I've been in communication with a lot of like music managers, right? Because even though I don't necessarily believe you need a record label to get huge amounts of exposure, which is what you want, right? Because we have to go through the process here, right? Which is what we all want is ultra main stage, right? Cream, you know, the big festivals. We all want this, right? So the stages are this. Okay, so the stages are, you want to get to a point where you're making awesome music, like your music that you can put on and you can pretty much play to the vast majority of people out there would go, that could be played on the radio and I would not think anything of it. That's step number 1. That's a bit of a tricky one. That's why we're all here. We're going to get you to that stage. That stage is definitely going to happen. Once you get to this stage, you then want to go down the route of remixing tracks, right? Why would you remix a track? Well, because a lot of people, when you start out, aren't typing in Phil Harris remixes. Because when I was, you know, when I didn't have any followers, no one knew who I was. Why would anybody type that in? It's not just going to guess. So then what I ended up doing is doing a lot of remixes and stuff like that, and trying to get like exposure and people who were listening to my music as I was remixing music. And I've done other things, and I kind of built up this kind of online presence now. And so I'm now at this point, right, where I've kind of got an online presence. I'm making kind of professional sounding music. I'm thinking, well, how do I now get to that next step? And the answer is, the next step is I want to be seen as a bigger DJ than I currently am, as like more of an actual producer. So in order to start getting onto the club scene and getting into festivals and stuff like that, these people will say, what record labels have you released your music on? You know, it's like, that's one of the first questions they say. It's like, you know, like I can go to them and go, look, I've got 100,000 followers on Instagram. That's more than this guy, and this guy's playing festivals. You know, it's like they go, so what? Where's your music released? Which is kind of a bummer, really, isn't it? So now my next thing is like, okay, well, let's just get this whole record label thing done. And I'm in communications with this music manager. And I'm telling you this because I think you guys would find this interesting. And so what they've said to me is, we need to now forget the remixes, because a record label cannot sign a remix because they don't have the rights to it. So you now have to go and make a ton of original music, right? So I'm making a ton of original music. Once I've got enough original music, you then present a record label, not just with your music. It's so layered, this, and I'm learning stuff now, and I will end up making this a part of the course at one point, but I need to really do it. I've got to do it first before I can teach this. The thing with a record label is they get pitched 200 to 300 tracks every single day, every single record label. This record label is a business, right? They're not there to help you or me. They're there to make as much money as possible, right? And you have to understand this. So this submitting your tracks randomly to a record label doesn't work, because what they've got is the guys at the top of the record label are not listening to 200 songs a day, like, oh, click on, listen to this, listen to this, listen to this. They've got someone right at the bottom who's kind of just going through 500 tracks a day, click, 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 15 seconds of the track next, 15 seconds of the track next. It's so depressing, right? Because it's like, what, 15 seconds? You're gonna listen to 15 seconds on my track? How about 4 weeks into that, you know, which is kind of annoying, right? But this is kind of the way it works, so I've been told. So what you've got to do is you've got to do what I'm doing, which is where you get in touch with people who know people, and then you kind of build a bit of a relationship. I will be teaching you all this once I've done it, but you build, and this is what I'm doing at the moment. Then you build a body of music. Like, I'm literally talking like 8 tracks, like a ton of tracks, and they got to be very, very good tracks. Then you present the record label with a pitch. The pitch isn't just, oh, here's the music, listen to it, please. It's, this person has built an online presence. This person has a following. This person is also making awesome music. This person is also this. And you pitch it. It's like pitching anything. It's like Dragon's Den or Shark's Tank. It's literally that, right? And then they go and do it. But here's the awesome thing. And this is the bit that actually kind of depressed me and blew my mind. But it made so much sense when the guy said it to me. He said, once you have, because a record label is not going to release one of your tracks. They're not just going to go, hey, we like that track, we're going to release it. What they say is like, if we release it, you are now one of our artists. If you get onto Defected, which is a tech house label, you are now a Defected artist. When Defected do tours, you will be on that tour with them, right? You've got a hell of a higher chance of being on that tour because you're supported by them. So they put a lot into the people whose songs they pitch. Now go back to what I said at the beginning, right? Which is record labels are a business, and they do not survive on people submitting tracks. They survive because if they need more tracks to release, they go to their artists who already exist and they go, we need another track. Can we have another track off you? We need to keep pushing this now, you know, like if you're going to be on the next Defected tour, you've got to be regularly releasing music with us. And you begin to see how this whole thing works, but it's kind of fascinating, right? Because I didn't think of it like this. Now, this is the thing, the guys who I've been speaking to, and they both, there's 3 people I'm speaking to, but 2 of them I'm kind of speaking to more than others. And they both said the same thing, which kind of blew my mind. They said, you have to release like 3 songs, like 1 song that they love and a follow-up 2 releases that they know in 2 months that song's being released, and in 2 months that song's being released. And they'll really push you at that point. And then like, that's when things get really exciting. That's what I would consider the big domino. It's like, okay, you got a song signed by a big record label. Things will now start moving, right? To a point that if these tracks do well and you make it into beat ports, and it's like, okay, other DJs are now playing these tracks, they then are supporting you. And at that point, you cannot be bad. You cannot send them a track that's subpar and not very good, because it's just not going to fly. And this guy said this to me, and I think he was saying it to see where my head was at. He was like, so he said, in most cases, you will not even be the person making the music. Now that blew my mind. Doesn't that freak you out a bit? And he was like, how many people do you follow on Instagram who are DJs? I was like, tons. Like, I follow every DJ that could possibly exist. And he was like, great. And he was like, how long does it take you to make a track? I was like, 2-3 weeks. He was like, right, so you spend a lot of time in the studio, right? I was like, yeah. He was like, how often do you see Timmy Trumpet posting himself in the studio? How often do you see Fisher in the studio? Have you ever seen Fisher in the studio? I was like, no. He was like, okay, and he started listing a ton. Now, obviously, there are some artists I do see in the studio, right? Like, I see James Hype in the studio. He posts it a lot, him in the studio. He was like, if you are following an artist who is regularly releasing music and you are never seeing them doing studio time, they are not making their own music. And that blew my mind, because I never see, there's like literally 3 or 4 artists I can think of who I see in the studio. It's like Skrillex, it's like Chris Lake, it's like James Hype. You ever seen Tita Lau in a studio? Yeah, when she's with James Hype. You know, it's like, but she's releasing music all the time. Now, does this blow anybody else's mind? He was like, once you've actually made it and you've made a couple of tracks, they're bringing people in to do this stuff for you. And he's like, it's not like you don't have a say. He said, you still have a say, but you're not just you anymore. You're now a business. You're now part of a team. You're submitting tracks. You're not doing your own mixing and mastering anymore. You've got another person who's jumping in and doing bits and bobs. So it's like this weird, convoluted journey he's explaining to me, which, and it kind of like is really awesome, really scary, and really kind of demoralizing, and then kind of exciting at the same time. It's like, whoa, what? So as soon as you become a somebody, all this team of people are pushing you. He's like, yeah. He's like, you've got these top artists on the planet. They're making millions and millions and millions, and hundreds of people are making huge livings off the back of them. And you think just them are standing in front of a computer by themselves, hoping their next track is going to be good when they're paying 25 people's salaries? He's like, it doesn't work like that. It's a business. So it's kind of interesting and kind of weird. And I said to him, I was like, why don't I just pay somebody to do it now then? He said, well, you can if you've got like 100K to spare. I'm like, oh, okay. So this is the interesting thing, you know, like if you take someone like Fisher, for example, right now, I've never, ever seen him in the studio ever. And I also know that Chris Lake does make some of his tracks for him. Does Fisher know how to make a single track? I don't know. He might just be a person who they just said, this guy is a great DJ. He's a big character. Let's push this guy because he can be huge. And everybody, including me, who's in this industry, making music on a daily basis and DJing constantly, go, yeah, I really like Fisher. You know, I don't even question it. It was only until he said the other day, he was like, have you ever seen him make music? Have you ever seen him talk about music? Find one tutorial of him on YouTube talking about music. John Summit, for example, you can go on YouTube and type in John Summit in the studio, and there's videos of John Summit showing you how to make his tracks. But there are huge artists who you will not find a single thing. You go and find Fisher in the studio, you won't. So this is kind of interesting, right? So why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because I don't know whether this is true or not. This is what they've told me, so I would suspect it was true. And the second thing I'm telling you is that it's kind of exciting in a weird way, but it does just mean until we all get to this point, we have to just follow this now. We have to get to that point, unless you've got tons of money and you can get somebody to go and write you a hit. But then now I've said that, that also makes sense, right? Like that does make sense. Every single person on this line, if you were a multi-millionaire, go and employ the top ghost producers on the planet to make you an absolute banger. Get them to make you 5 and then send them off to a record label and say you made them. You'll make it, right? It's like obvious. Now I've said it, right? But he was like, oh, you know, so the way you got to do it is you make this music. We then present them with this pitch. Like this is, it's not just, you almost like forget about the music. This is the guy. This is the guy, right? Or girl or whatever, right? And this is the reasons why. So this is the process everybody has to go through. You get good at making music. Step 1, your music has to sound good. It has to sound really good. Step number 2, you then start doing remixes and stuff like that. Into remix competitions. You start to build up your online presence. And I know some of you are probably thinking, oh, I don't want to have to do that. But unfortunately, it is part of it these days, building up that social online presence. So people are kind of watching you. You know, they're kind of going, I'm kind of interested in this guy. You've got fans, right? And when you go to the businesses on these record labels, and you're kind of not just presenting your music, you're saying, here's a ton of very, very good music. And this person's music has been supported by these people. And this person has got this much followers on Twitch, Instagram, YouTube, all the platforms. And here's what we present with you. And they might still say no. But at that point, you just keep doing it. You keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. And you keep doing all this stuff. And it will just, I have a 100% belief it will just happen. And I believe this for all of you, and I believe this for myself. I wouldn't be here teaching this stuff and telling you all this unless I believed 100% to my core that this is doable. And so do I think this is doable for me and you? 100%. And like, I will just, and this is the attitude you all need to adapt. I will do this over and over and over and over, and I will not stop until I get this, right? And that's the attitude you have to take. It's like, these steps I'm telling you is just it. So get your music sounding good. Get a good 8 songs that all sound freaking fantastic. That's like step 1. And by the way, and if it doesn't work, you do it again and do it again. So it really is like a numbers game at this point. And that's why a lot of these things, like following a formula, making sure your music sounds the same, and you've got a sound to yourself. And, you know, like once you've got that sound and that formula, you've made that one song, you're like, I really like this. Just make a ton more that are very, very similar to it, right? I mean, even if they sound weirdly similar, just do it, because when you present it, you want to sound like an artist. Yeah, so, I mean, I don't really have a specific point to tell you on this one. But I want to tell you this stuff because this is stuff that I'm finding out at the moment, and I find it very interesting. It's like, whoa, wow, that's really how it works, and it's just interesting. I mean, do you guys find this interesting? I mean, you're still hanging around here, right, watching me, so I'm guessing you do find this interesting. Give me some thumbs up if you're like, this is interesting. Has anybody's minds been blown? Like, have any of you seen Fisher in the studio? Have any of you seen Timmy Trumpet? I mean, Ryan, you're Timmy Trumpet's biggest fan. I don't want to poo-poo Timmy Trumpet too, because I think he's awesome too, but I haven't seen him.
I actually know the answer to this. I've just put it in the chat. So other than in COVID, because he's got a studio at home and he had nothing else to do with his time, he spends no longer than an hour on his track. He will send his team an idea. So he'll go and whatever, he'll send that off.
What, he'll sing that?
It all together. Yeah, he'll send them, you know like how you and I talk on WhatsApp?
Yeah,
that's what he does. He sends a WhatsApp voice note to them with just literally that. They'll put something together, send it to him,
right,
and then he tweaks it in Ableton and makes it his own, and then they mix it and master it. I know that because I asked him.
So so that's exactly it, right? We will get to we'll get to a point where our music.
He said the important thing for him. He said the important thing for him is because he plays the trumpet over it, it has to build to whatever he's going to play. So that's why he does that. He said he knows people that don't do any of it, but he said, I make it so that everything pulls away and it builds the tension for me to actually play something over the top of it. But he doesn't.
Sorry, carry on.
He doesn't always play the same thing over the top of it. So at different shows, he'll play different things. That's why he's as involved as he is, because he wants it to build to one of potentially 5 things he has in his head.
Right.
But other than that, he does nothing.
It's still fascinating though, right? Because I mean, there we go. You know, and this is how the guy explained it to me as well. He said, you don't have nothing to do with it. He said, you just become like a senior producer, and producer, not like this, but just like, you just oversee it. I like that one. I don't like that one. That's my sound. That one's not. That I love that idea, but I'm going to tweak that. And then once you've done your little bit of tweaking, which like Ryan just said, it's like an hour in the studio, because I could tweak a melody in 2 seconds. And then it's like, right, straight off to the mixing, straight off to the mastering. Guys who have been doing this 40 years, we're going to make that sound like epic. And it's like, boom, it's done. You know, you are a business. Timmy Trumpet will do 1 to maybe, you know, even 2 a day. I mean, if any of you have seen the Avicii documentary, right? These guys are doing 2 shows a day, 1 in Ibiza, 1 in Vegas, another festival the next day, back over to Vegas, and they're getting 250K for every gig they're doing. Avicii is not a one-man band. He's a huge business making millions and millions and millions. And even in the documentary, even with Avicii, because I think Avicii is another one of these guys who did make a lot of his own music, kind of all the way through. Even if you see him, he's in the studio with 5 other people, right? It's like, even if he was the main guy, there's a lot of other people there doing it. And imagine how easy it would be if you were making music now and you had 5 other professional producers and instrumentalists with you, because that's how big a deal you are now. Then think how easy it is to come up with a song. I could come out, like, I often think this when I make music myself. I can come out with an idea in 10 minutes. You know, like I can sing an idea into my phone, or I can go on Splice and get like a little loop and go, oh, I'm going to change that loop around a little bit. And that idea is like that. And then 95% of the time is tweaking and building and mixing and mastering, and making it all sound good and making it sound right and referencing, you know. But here's the thing. I also believe this, okay, just in case any of you are like slightly demoralized by this, don't be. I think it's superb that I have this knowledge that you will all have soon, because say when we make it, and they go, great, okay, cool. So we got you booked in a studio slot with Martin Garrix next week, okay? Now, if that was to happen, think how much you'd crap yourself if you secretly didn't have a clue about music. And you had to walk into that studio with Martin Garrix and go, just so you know, I didn't make the music, I bought it. You know, it's like, and then suddenly you've lost the respect of Martin Garrix. And now you might think, oh, who cares? And just don't go in the studio with Martin Garrix. But I'm like, I like the thought that if they said, right, Phil, you're in the studio with Calvin Harris next week, you're in a big collab with him. I go, cool. I have 100% confidence to walk in that room because I can bring stuff to the table. I've got ideas. I know what I'm doing. And so I'm happy with that, you know, and that's great. That's power as well, right there. It's like, whoa, this guy really knows what he's talking about, you know. And so it's good. And also, let's face it as well. This is another critical thing that we haven't discussed. This is fun. Like, we actually enjoy doing this. Like, there's great satisfaction from coming up with an idea and making music. And like that moment where you make a track and you go, well, this sounds awesome. It's really good fun. I enjoy making music. So again, I don't want this stuff I told you to in any way demoralize you. I'm just telling you it from a point, and I'll continue making music. Like, you know, for years I've said, if I won the lottery, I would just build a really big fancy studio and I'd sit and I make music all day, right? I don't say if I won the lottery, I'd buy a festival and make sure I was the headliner, which if I won 150 million would be very easy for me to do. Oh, I'm just going to hire the fields where they do cream fields for a couple of mil. I'm going to hire a load of artists in for a couple of mil. I'll probably at least draw even on ticket sales, but I'll just make sure I'm headlining the event. If I had 150 million, that's not hard for me to do that. You know, but that's not the thing I'd say I'd do if I won 150 million. The thing I say I'd do is I'd sit and make music all day. So that really is, in essence, what this is all about. But I wanted to just share that with you anyway. So Abbas, you have a question?
Yes, Phil. By the way, your new single, No Limits, loved it. You just released it. Great song.
Awesome.
And great conversation you just had. These last 5-10 minutes, priceless. I mean, especially like take an example that it's not just about the money and why you make art and make music.
Yeah.
You're about to do the show at the Ministry of Sound. Can you touch how long the set, and are you excited? What are you planning to do on the set? So first of all, I wish I could be there to see it. But
yeah, so it's kind of awesome. So it was kind of like this is another thing that is the power of social media, of having a social media presence, which is why you really want to you almost want to start building it now, right? And I know a couple of you on here definitely have started doing this, but another reason why this is important is like, and I've noticed this, now I've reached once you get to a certain point of followers, when you reach out to people, I don't know why, but you just get more likely to get a reply. So there's these two DJs called the Mendez brothers who DJ heavily in Ministry of Sound. And I'd reached out to them at some point. And then I'd reached out to a couple of other DJs who I'd known had DJ'd at Ministry of Sound, and kind of just having a bit of a back and forth. And then one of the guys messaged me saying, "Oh, contact this guy. He's going to get you a gig at Ministry of Sound." So I contacted him, and then lo and behold, he said, "Yeah, you can go and DJ at Ministry of Sound." And then so in terms of, was that all of your questions? Or?
Yeah, I mean, what kind of set are you? How long is your set? Do you think is?
So it's an hour long, and
an hour long. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm going to just be playing a lot of my kind of music, which is kind of tech house, bass house kind of music. So all I'm doing now, because I've got to do it this week now.
Okay.
I've got to I'm getting about 30 to 40 songs together. Okay. I will get 30 or 40 songs, put them into an album, like a folder. I will then go through and actually chuck them in my decks and figure out which one, the flow of it. And I'll go from like lower tempo, not lower tempo, it's all going to be the same kind of tempo, but lower energy stuff to higher energy stuff. But I like high energy stuff, so my whole set will probably be high energy. And I will then just make sure I'll only play the first build and drop of any song, which is another reason why I would say to you guys, don't worry too much about the second drop. Just make it similar to the first, because most DJs do what I do. They'll play the build, the drop onto the next song, right? So I'll do that, work out the flow of it. And then here's the thing you will find funny, right? I've got CDJ 3000s over there, which is the newer versions. And I haven't used CDJ 2000s for a long time. I'm actually going to hire out a studio and go and have a run through the set on CDJ 2000s, because I just want to know when I turn up, because I've used these for so long now and I just want to know that it's all the same, which I know it is, and I've used it before, but I just want to be on the right page. So it will, in answer to your question, the entire set will be pre-planned. I will know exactly what order I'm playing the music, because I just want to come in hard. I'm going to be playing bangers and like, I'm not necessarily going to be looking at the crowd, right? Which is, by the way, let me touch on this as well. When you DJ regular events, like you do an open format in a club, right? Or you're doing an event, like, or a wedding or anything like that. This is different DJing. That DJing is you're looking at the crowd. What do they like? They like that. I'm playing more of that. Oh, they like hip hop tonight. I'm going to play a bit more hip hop. That's why it's called open format. You just play what the crowd like. When you're playing a house event in Ministry of Sound, this is the beauty of it, and this is what I want to be doing more of, is you turn up to a load of people who love house music, who are there to see house music. Therefore, I'm going to be playing bangers that are house music. And I know that a lot of people in, the clubs in the city center probably wouldn't like the set I'm doing, but the people who are coming to see this will like it. And that's what I want. And that's what we all want here, right? Is we don't want to have to, that person's just requested Beyonce, so now I have to play Beyonce. We want to be able to go in and go, this is my music. I love this music, and I'm going to hit you with this music. And that's what we all see when we go to festivals and clubs. And, so that's the awesome thing about it,
Awesome. Super excited for you, man.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm really excited about it. I literally cannot wait. It's going to be freaking awesome. Carl, have you got a question?
Yeah, I was wondering if you could possibly document you putting together your live set. Because that's been something that's always interested me, is how festival DJs put together their sets in order to make it flawlessly blend. So I don't know if you could document that while you're doing it, because I would love to see that.
Yeah, I could probably document it, but I could kind of tell you how I'm going to do it. I have playlists. So like I have like a playlist. I don't know if any of you are into this kind of music, but if you go to Bass House Hits, I've got a ton of music that I like here, right? So I will definitely be going through and playing some of these tracks. I'm also going to be taking some of my own tracks, which are also on this playlist, and I will be playing my own music. And I'm going to get 30 of these tracks, and then I'm going to go set it all up in Record Box, right? And set my cue points and markers and stuff. And then I'm going to DJ it for an hour. And I'm just going to go, maybe even record it and listen to it back, right? Take it on a walk, listen to headphones, go, do you know that one song is just not up to scratch, right? But usually when you do a DJ set, you know the songs that are just not up to scratch. So I'm going to make sure that this is just thumping the whole way through. So if one of the tracks, even if it's one of my tracks, just isn't up to standard, it's just not up to standard and it's just gone, right? And then I'm just going to work out the order. So I'll probably be starting with kind of slower kind of tracks that are just a bit more like, you know, like for example, this is probably what I would consider to be more of a low tempo track.
Make my day.
But it's kind of cool, right? And then I would probably build to what I would consider to be like, maybe this is a bit extreme, but this is an example of a higher energy track.
Jump up and down and straight lose it.
It's just higher energy. So I would go from the lower stuff to the higher stuff. But how freaking awesome. I mean, just like literally just playing that there. I'm like, imagine that going off on a huge sound system. Oh, it's going to be insane. It's going to be so good. I cannot wait. Oh my God, it's going to be so good. I'll film the whole thing as well. So you guys will be able to watch it back and stuff. But you know, like, you know, it's like little things. Like I found this track earlier on. I was like, that's awesome, this track. And it's so simple.
Shake up the dice. Shake up the dice.
Oh, it's awesome. It's like so up my street. Anyway, I'm just rambling here at this point. But yeah. Do we have any other questions? Yeah, Ali, do you have a question?
Yes, Phil. So you were talking about DJ equipment like CDJ 3000 and 2000 you have. Actually, I have a controller that I want to upgrade. I want to buy something nice. So what do you recommend? Actually,
okay, so right, this is a really good question, right? So obviously not everybody can go out and get these kind of big, fancy, expensive decks. I was doing it because it's kind of like, it was kind of my career really, you know, like teaching people doing stuff. So it's kind of, I had a real reason to go and get these. But, you know, if you're, you know, it's funny because I started on Serato and I DJed on Serato. So I was using like the DDJ SX2 was the decks I had. But then I moved over to Record Box. Now you can DJ in a club on Serato. A lot of DJs do it, but the typical club standard DJ decks are Pioneer DJ decks, right? And there are tons of better DJ decks out there. Like a lot of people are really into Denon and stuff, but the reality is I can walk into a club in any part of the world, and those will be the DJ decks there. So part of me feels more and more these days, you're probably better off getting like the DJ 400s and then learning with Record Box. And here's the thing, you know, if you are not used to DJing on these DJ decks, there will be a studio somewhere in your town locally where you can go and use the CDJ 2000s, you know, like, and then just go and practice on them. So that would be my advice. If you were thinking, I've got a club spot tonight and I've got to go, and oh my gosh, I haven't used those decks before. They're very similar. They're basically identical, but you might just want to, the reason I'm doing it is just to like, just completely familiarize myself. Cause you know, I just think even though they're the same decks, there might be minor differences that I might have forgotten about. And I want to be reminded of those differences before I turn up to Ministry of Sound, rather than going, oh my God, that thing's over there, I didn't realize, you know, whatever. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah. Thanks, Will.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah. So look, yeah, and by the way, this is the other thing. I miss a lot of these questions in the chat, I have to say. So I'm kind of skimming through them here, but you know, if anybody has got questions for me, just ask them. But yeah, like a lot of these kind of tracks I like, and yeah, you know, like I said, like that remix I showed you at the beginning. If I find a remix that I like online, I'll just kind of go and remake it or whatever. And yeah, that's basically everything. Right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up there. We've been on the line for 2 hours. Wow. Okay. So yeah, oh, you know, we got 2 more questions. Ali, have you got a question still? Okay, fine. Ryan, do you have a question?
Not a question. It was just a note for Ali. Ali, if you don't want to go and spend a fortune on like CDJs, I've got a DDJ 1000, and that's probably the closest you'll get. It's got the mechanical jog wheels. It's obviously it's a bit smaller, but it's got the same functionality, but it just remains a controller. But it's probably, without making the move to CDJs and a CDM mixer, it's probably the closest you're going to get. There you go, Phil. I'll show you.
All right, thanks, Ryan.
Yeah. Looks, that's the one there, Phil. Not that one. Left.
This one.
Left.
Yeah.
It's a 4-channel mixer as well. It's got two decks, but it's 4 channels, so you can.
I go to Pioneer website; they're all sold out. There's nothing you can buy.
Oh, it's this chip shortage. Have a look on Facebook Marketplace. That's where I got mine from. All but brand new and like half the price.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But yeah, that's what it. So those pads at the bottom are effectively the 8 buttons that Phil has above his jog wheel, above the jog wheel, and that is about the only real difference. You get a few less effects in the mixer as well. But
they're all very similar. Once you're on these kind of decks, it's like I could jump on these decks and do a DJ set in the same way I could with the 2000s. There's no huge differences, but it's just little things. Like, for example, the hot cues are at the bottom, not at the top. And I mean, it's obvious.
That's all it is.
Yeah. By the way, just before I go, because I'm aware I kind of done a lot of talking here, what are your biggest takeaways from what I said about how some, you know, once you make it, you become a business and you're not even going to be making a lot of your own music? I mean, how do you feel about that? Because that was so interesting for me, because like it makes so much sense, but it was also a bit of a mind-blowing moment, like, oh my God, you know.
That was eye-opening.
Yeah,
definitely eye-opening for me. I was like, okay, this is the future that in 1 year, 2 year, I'm not facing it. So
100%, yeah.
Actually reminded me of a lot of Netflix series and movies that are out there about a lot of artists who get to that certain point, and then they meet their manager or the capitalist side and the money side of things, and how it can get challenging at that level. It reminded me of a lot of series.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Somebody just asked me about, wait, who are all these people on these songs? Like, why are there like 10 people?
Yeah.
And we were talking about, you know, oh, well, maybe somebody's good at one part and, you know, not another. Maybe somebody's really good at laying down the drums and somebody else is good at mastering. And really, this makes more sense that there's actually like a team, like being assigned these parts, and maybe putting them on the names because there's contracts involved or who knows.
Yeah, that's exactly what's going on, you know. Because, you know, you will all find you have strong suits and, you know, weak suits, like mixing and mastering, like mastering and mixing. I'm got good at over the years, but I will regularly do a master and then listen to a reference track and go, my master's just not quite good enough. And it might be that they're running it through $5,000 analog studio equipment. And it's like, but I hate excuses, by the way. So like for me, it's like no excuses. Just you got the stuff, you will be able to do it, Phil. You know, but it's just, you know, it's just eye-opening, isn't it? You know. And the other thing is, once you're touring and stuff, like how do you have time to do it? It's just impossible to do it all, you know, because it's just so much time doing this stuff.
Seems like almost like any business, but you don't want to look at it as a business. I mean, while making art and music at a certain point where you're just creating But of course, right, we all like money, we want to. So when you start looking at it as a business, it's like almost any business where you need a team, you need a plan, you need good partners.
Well, great leadership is about delegation, right? You know, and like, if you wanted to grow a business or grow something, you've got to be able to delegate stuff. But here's the thing that'll really blow your mind as well, is it might seem like this big capitalistic thing, or they're going to tell me what I can do and I'm going to lose all this power. And you can look at it from that point of view. But you can also look at it from the point of view that if you had to now run everything yourself, and it's like, right, so today you've got to get up, you've got to book all your flights for this tour you're going on. You need to get in contact with all the people who are booking it. You've got to prepare loads of music and prepare all your sets. You've got to do all the lighting and pyrotechnics for the shows in all the different cities you're going to. It's like, I have to outsource. You cannot do it all yourself. So you can look at it from this capitalistic, oh, they're going to tell me what to do. Or you can look at it from the point of view that realistically, if you had to do it, you have no option but to start outsourcing. And even when it comes down to, right, I've got to release 5 bangers this year to keep growing my profile, but I've also got to do 300, festival shows this year. Well, now you've got to outsource that as well, because you have to do the tours, because that's the thing that's making you the money, right? So you could say, well, I'm going to stop touring and make music for a year, but then you lose your profile.
On that note, really great point. But this is just a little off track. Have you heard of this DJ Mala from France?
Yeah, I thought it was pronounced Mala, but yeah,
Mala or Malaya. And
he
always has this face mask on. Sometimes I wonder if it's just one person or is it different people behind the mask doing it.
Yeah, by the way, that's a really good point. That is a very good point, because you see, the thing is, I said to this music manager that I was speaking to, I was like, how much of this do I have to start thinking about my image and how I look and stuff? And he said, that is definitely a part of it. He said, that will definitely become part of it. You will have to have a look. You'll have to have a vibe. And he said, less so with the tech house guys. Like if you're looking at Chris Lake, Clooney, these guys, they're not marshmallow, but it's certain genres more so than others. But yeah, and suddenly you realize the real genius of putting a bucket over your head, right?
Yeah.
Putting a mouse head on. It's like, wow, that's actually genius. Because now everybody knows it. The kids all love you. You're now not a human anymore. You're now like a creation, a character. You suddenly realize the genius behind this, and why I now go into a shop and I see Marshmallow's head on a Coke can. It's like, wow, what a clever guy. And the second thing you said, which is also genius, you think when you're say, like, this is another interesting, I'm just kind of monologuing here because I find this an interesting topic, but I used to do wedding photography, right? And I think I told this story on one of my previous calls. When I first started, I'd go along, I'd be paid no money at all, like £500, which is very cheap for a wedding. And you get people who were getting married in a not very nice location. And this is a horrible thing to say, but I'm going to say it because it is true. People who don't care much about their wedding photographer, and people who get married in a very, very often are not very good looking people. Shouldn't have said that, but it's true. And so you've got to turn up and you've got to take pictures of not very good looking people in horrible settings and not get paid much. When you're the top of your game and you are taking photography and you're getting paid 10 grand for a wedding, you're getting flown out to Santorini and you're taking pictures of supermodels.
Yeah.
It's not hard to do that. And anybody can make those pictures look stunning because everything's going to be stunning, right? And it's kind of the same as this. When you're at the top and you're DJing at Main Stage Ultra, and I don't know this for a fact, but I seriously doubt they are actually DJing, because they've got pyrotechnics lined up, they've got visuals lined up. Martin Garrix, like if he goes, oh, I missed my phase there. Oh, I'm gonna have to blend out the outro rather than at the drop because I messed that one up. Suddenly everything's out. The pyrotechnics are out, the lighting's out, the finale, the fireworks at the end, everything is now out. So why would you risk DJing live when you could just pre-mix it, press play, pretend you're DJing and throw your hands in the air? Again, that sounds soul destroying, But if I was the one calling on the shots here, and I just spent millions on the sound guy, millions on the lighting guy, millions on this, and they're like, right, now, Phil, do you want to DJ live, which could mess up everything? Or do you want to just pre-record it and make sure it's absolutely perfect and then stand there looking like the Don? I go, probably pre-record it at that level, right? And that's
I can add to that as well. That was part of the same conversation I was having with Timmy Trumpet. He, like, because it was on the run up to Tomorrowland, everything for every artist is pre-recorded, and they do it in sections of about 7 or 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And then they'll do a transition from one to the other, and they'll talk over it or something like that. But they have an iPad with a countdown, and they know at exactly what point they have to be at with another thing, and they'll jump ahead if they need to, because, like you said, everything's all lined up. And one person that did do it live back, I think he said it was like 2018, the CDJ stopped working.
Oh, I know. And then what happens?
And it fucked the whole thing.
I know. And then what happens? Now, I have seen stories of, like, I used to do a lot of blogging. What was his name? I've slipped my mind now. Afrojack. And he talked about this time he was doing, I think it was Tomorrowland, and the CDJ stopped working. So I know there probably are some artists that are, but, you know, the reality is when you're absolutely at the top, the irony to it all is you're not making your own music and you're not DJing. It's kind of crazy, right? But you'll be making a hell of a lot of money, you know, and you'll look like a freaking rock star. And don't think that these people don't know how to DJ and make their own dance music. That's another very critical thing, right? You could throw Martin Garrix into a smaller club and he would be DJing and he would be making his own music. That's a very critical point to add. The wedding photographers who are taking $10,000 weddings know how to take a good picture beforehand. They can do the cheap weddings and still make it look good. That's very critical. That's a very important point to add. And I did have another point on the basis of it being pre-recorded as well.
Can I just had a thought that you put in the work to get to that point, right? I mean, like, that's what you did. You laid the groundwork to get there, to be recognized, to be on that stage, and how you're going to have that professional set. It has to be perfect. It has to be. But you did the work to get there. So that's where the meaning is.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's weird because you look at it from two angles. People get very angry about some of the stuff I'm saying, you know, like, oh, capitalist world, and oh, they're not real DJs, and oh, they all use ghost producers. And it's like, yes and no. It really is yes and no. But it's a fascinating subject, and you know, I think it's kind of cool at the same time, you know. Anyway, I feel like we kind of exhausted that topic. It's very interesting. I'm glad I told you all, and I'll definitely keep you all up to date on more progressions from that, you know. And like I said, I'm sure it'll happen for all of us, which is exciting. Cool. Right, let's leave it there. I'll speak to you all next week. Okay, cheerio. Bye, everyone.